Welcome to another Miami Hurricanes recruiting podcast. I am your host, Brian Smith. I am the publisher at All Hurricanes, and you can find me at FBScout_Florida on Twitter. Let's get started. A couple of guys I want to talk about just to give an overview heading into the weekend where they're going to have visitors for like a barbecue, a kind of a fun function that just about every school in the country does now prior to the start of fall camp across the country, high school and college, and the NFL. Here's the deal. This is a mix and mingle, get to know coaches, get to know players, bring your parents kind of deal. And it may sound generic, but it's really important, especially on the recruit side of it. Why is that? Parents aren't going to hand you over to anybody unless they get to know you a little bit. Guardians, friends, high school coaches, insert whatever you may. That being said, Miami's in the boat where they got to figure it out what's important to each recruit and those around them, and it's different every single time. Recruiting is hard, very hard. And this is a very important step for the Canes, for the parents, for staff members, recruiting admin, everybody, because they're all trying to figure each other out. Now they're hanging out and talking, but you get vibes about what they're into. Is it an outgoing personality, etc. So, for instance, Kamari Franklin, Lake Cormorant, Mississippi. He doesn't live all that far, honestly, from Oxford, which, of course, is where Ole Miss is located. He's been there more times than he can probably count. That being stated, if I remember correctly, it's right around number 5 this year for unofficial and or official visits when he comes down. That's important. You're not going to come down again, official visit, came down for the camp to work out with Jason Taylor, et cetera, unless you're serious. And he's bringing grandma. Back to that point, family members, they want to know. It is vital that family members sign off on any school. But I can just tell you from having experience in the state and knowing the South like I do, and it's one of the reasons I travel so much, it's to get to know communities and how people act and what they value. I cannot describe specifically what Mississippi is like, but it is without question, in my opinion, the nicest people from person to person that I've met anywhere in the United States. The easiest going, most laid back people that I know from all my experiences are Mississippi. And they are people that probably value family, being near their friends and family and interacting with them, what they think, how they interact with others and what their friends think of that. Like, it all goes back to family. So with him bringing down his grandmother, this is an important visit for the Canes. He would not bring her unless Kamarion has a serious interest in Miami and could end up there. There's also rumor about him possibly making a decision and all that. I have no idea on a date. I'm not going to say it. I haven't texted with him or messaged with him or anything recently. I'm going to wait until after the visit. There's really no reason to do anything now to find out anything. If he comes back from the visit, I don't care if he talks to me or whoever, it doesn't make any difference. We all talk amongst ourselves anyway in the recruiting industry. But I can tell you this, if he doesn't have glowing things to say with any individual, it's not a good sign, but he's always kept coming back. So obviously Miami is right there. Again, you don't come 5 times for the hell of it. Final point about him. Miami needs D linemen. Here's the basic recruiting. It's not a hard sell at this point. They put all their eggs into this basket because the staff has recruited him so hard, and Miami deserves credit for it. From the top of the board at Mario, the recruiting staff, everybody in between, Jason Taylor, Big Joe, everybody, they know how big a priority he is, and they've done a good job. If they don't get him, it's not on Miami. Sometimes you just don't win it. I will call out a staff in a millisecond. If they screw up something, they haven't screwed this up. We'll just got to wait and see where he goes. Auburn is also supposed to get an unofficial visit for him soon. Very curious about that because like Miami, they really need defensive linemen. No idea what that situation is going to be like, but let's see the other players in this just as a reference. Ole Miss, as mentioned a minute ago, and Tennessee. If there's anybody else, I'd be surprised, but those are the 4 I know about. Now, next up is a rather interesting one. Speaking of SEC schools, Jaylen Heyward plays at Rockledge over on the Space Coast. He's a nickel safety corner hybrid guy. And in today's world, he's right down the middle because he's all the above. It's college football today is about how are you going to cover the slot and handle bunch formations, because if you can't handle those two scenarios, and sometimes both, you're probably going to get smoked. Teams that don't do well in the passing game defensively, it almost always goes back to handling those two situations for big plays. This is a guy that can move around and do different things for you, play to play, even if their personnel changes and yours doesn't. And that is so valuable. It's also why Georgia originally got his commitment. But Heyward decommitted. He's been to Miami. Is that the next move? It could be. I haven't talked to him directly since he decommitted, but I know him pretty well, and he's a guy that he's pretty blunt. When he wants to do something, he just goes and does it, and he doesn't do things just for the heck of it. He's very interested in Miami. Cristobal and the staff have done a good job of recruiting to this point, but now that he's decommitted, I mean, it's basically open season. I'm sure he's getting inboxed by every college coach in America, from Wyoming to Boston College, whatever. I expect him to stay closer to home, and I'd written about that on All Hurricanes a while back. Don't think that's going to change. UCF, Miami, I expect it to be one or the other. Let's see how the visits go in the fall. Even if he commits to Miami at this barbecue or something, and if he comes, and that all of this is unless I say he's a kid that'll figure it out the day of. He's one of those kids. He's not going to just go out there and make it happen on everything. He's going to try to get to events, but it's still a long way from Rockledge to Coral Gables. So we'll see if he makes it. But even if he committed, I bet you he'd still visit a couple other schools, because he's going to want to be sure and doesn't want to decommit a second time, which is smart. Good kid, very blunt, down to earth. We'll see where he goes. But again, a nickel that can play a little safety, play some corner. Miami, I'd heard, likes him both, but we'll see how that goes too. Once you get on the field at a school, that's when your position's developed. These things that we put up next to their name is only a guide until they get to college. Keep that in mind. Receiver, D-line, O-line, whatever. It's just a guide. So anyway, with Heyward, I don't have a timeline, but I think he is a very likely kid to end up with Miami at some point. Finally, as far as individual players, Lawayne McCoy. Like Heyward, he's probably going to be down at Miami. Is it going to be a lock that he comes? I have no idea. But he goes to Central. It's local. It's a lot easier for him to get there than the other two I just talked about. And he's a kid that grew up liking Miami. And he likes a lot of the kids that are already committed to Miami. And all these different things. There's so many people around him that have Miami influence. Would it be surprising if he didn't come? To me, yes. It really would. I'm not saying he's on commit watch, but it wouldn't shock me there either. I hate predicting when South Florida kids are going to do anything with recruiting, because they are very, very difficult to grade on that area. They're all over the map. Lawayne's pretty chill though. So if he flips, kind of like I was talking about with Heyward, I would expect it to be a final decision. So don't do it unless you're done, kind of thing. I don't know where that's at though. Just my opinion. It could be a situation where he's potentially at least ready to get this over with. Because I'm sure, again, it's like with Heyward, a gazillion schools are trying to get him to flip, take visits, etc. I'm sure Florida or South Carolina, whatever it is trying. He's probably tired of it. And it's only going to intensify as signing day gets closer and closer. I believe this year it's December 20th. So pay attention to which players show up, not what they say on Twitter, not what you say. It's not what you type. It's what you do, meaning visits, visits, and visits. It's just, that's everything. If you're not taking the trips, you're not going to that school, period. Finally, a note in general that I think a lot of people don't know about, and I didn't even know about it till recently. The NCAA has, again, changed rules. Don't get me started on that organization. 2025 players, meaning kids that will be juniors this fall. August 1st, they can get these from college coaches legally. Not that a lot of you, and I know who a lot of you are, don't do it anyway, but they can legally take phone calls from college coaches. So this is a situation where Miami and every other school has a chance to make a first impression. And I'm going to talk about this constantly. Got to do it, got to do it, got to do it, got to do it. You only get one chance at that first impression. And some of these kids are also going to visit for this cookout barbecue thing that Miami's doing. I don't even know all the names. There'll be some out-of-state kids, and those are the ones I'm honestly most interested in, because if you're going to do a Miami visit and you're from New York, let's just say upstate New York, some kid from Syracuse, I have no idea. There'll be kids that show up that nobody knows about. That's how these things work. Then you went out of your way. And especially if you're an underclassman, your interest is sincere, or you're a very unusual human being. Why in the heck would you be there? Now, of course, you want the local kids. Jabari and some of the other younger guys are going to be there, 25s, and I'm sure some of the Central kids, maybe Killian or whatever, will be there as well. It's nothing unusual, South Broward High School, whatever it is, there'll be some underclassmen, 26, 25 there from all over the state. That's important. Find out who they are. That's what this is about too for them. This is a preliminary deal for their parents, for their high school coaches, etc. This Miami staff is fairly new. They have some coaches that, for instance, Jason Taylor just got there. What's he really like? What would it be like to be coached by a Hall of Fame defensive end? Here's your chance to find out. And that's why they have these events. It's great for all parties involved. I'm really curious to see which kids show up. I don't care about the list. I could give two craps about the list. Who shows up? That's the most important thing here. If Miami gets the right kids on campus for this event, it's going to be a big deal because it sets the foundation for long term. If you want to sign elite kids, you got to get in on them early. I know some of Miami's coaches flat out have made that a point. That's not opinion. I know that flat out. And they're doing that. So that's very, very important this weekend. And then again, with these phone calls, August 1st, bro, that's the whole 9 yards right there. They've got to make that mark. And today's the 26th. So that's only 6 days from now. Next Tuesday, that phone's going to start ringing. So keep that in mind. Make sure to check out everything at allhurricanes.com. We're getting it done, talking about the season and the predictions. I got my countdown, the Canes list. Today was number 3. With Cameron Kinchins. I've got a lot of stuff up there about that. And I kind of take a different approach with the site. We do it a little bit differently. It's going to be fun. I'm going to do some ACC stuff a little broader in August. Make sure you check that stuff out. Who Miami's opponents are, not just from here are their stats, who are the returning players. That's boring. I'm not boring you with that stuff. I don't read it either, and I know you don't. It's going to be prediction-based, and it's going to be based off inside intel. It's going to be based off my experience, relying on Alex Dono and other people that understand what it's like to be at Miami, talking to people behind the scenes. You get an idea, and then you go chase down more info to verify it. It's a long process, but there's a reason I do it, because it works out, and it can help you from anything about which team's going to win the game, but why? What is the difference between this team? Why should Miami be worried about a team that most people think are going to go 6-6? Matchups. Everything's matchups. I'll be talking a lot about that too. All Hurricanes. Make sure you check that out. As far as this podcast, please hit that notification bell. Please share it and like it. And above all else, as I always say, please comment. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are about what's going on with Miami, what's going on with the other people that you're interested in hearing about in relation to the Canes or somebody else in the ACC, one of the rivals, whatever. Let's talk. Please comment, and I'll get back with you. Everybody have a great day, and thank you very much.